The Sentinel Academy had stood for 3 centuries, its obsidian towers piercing the violet sky of Krathos Prime like black knives. Within its halls, the galaxy's most elite warriors trained, species from 100 worlds, each one vetted, tested, and proven worthy. The entrance requirements were legendary. The dropout rate was higher. Sarah walked through the main gate at dawn, her worn boots crunching on gravel that had been imported from old Earth. She carried nothing but a duffel bag and a determination that burned brighter than Krathos's twin suns. The human was unremarkable by most standards. Average height, average build, brown hair tied back in a practical knot. But Thorin, the Valkyr guard who had processed 1,000 applicants, noticed something different about her eyes. They held the kind of quiet steel he'd only seen in veterans. Identification, he rumbled, his forearms crossed over his chitinous chest. Sarah handed over her datapad. Thorin's compound eyes scanned the information, his mandibles clicking in surprise. Human, from the outer colonies, no military background, no formal combat training, no genetic enhancements. You understand the mortality rate here is 18%? Thorin asked. I've read the statistics, Sarah replied evenly. I'm still here. Thorin was about to respond when he heard it, a series of high-pitched chirps and squeaks from behind the human. He looked down and felt his 3 hearts nearly stop. 6 creatures, no bigger than house cats, tumbled through the gate after Sarah. They were Valdrin cubs, their golden fur still soft with youth, their oversized paws tangling with each other as they bounded forward. Valdrin, the apex predators of the Andromeda sector, the species whose adults stood 3 meters tall and could tear through ship hulls with their claws. Those are, Thorin began. I know what they are, Sarah said calmly, glancing back at the cubs who immediately clustered around her feet, chirping and pawing at her boots. They started following me about 3 systems ago. I've tried to lose them, tried to leave them with wildlife services. They keep finding me. The largest cub, its fur marked with distinctive silver stripes, climbed up Sarah's leg and perched on her shoulder, nuzzling against her neck. The others formed a protective circle around her, their juvenile growls more adorable than threatening. Thorin knew the rules. No unauthorized life forms. No exceptions. He had turned away princesses with their comfort animals, soldiers with their service companions, even a hive queen who had offered him a fortune to allow her ceremonial drones to enter. The rules were absolute. He looked at Sarah, then at the cubs who were now play-fighting at her feet, occasionally stopping to look up at her with what could only be described as devotion. Follow me, Thorin heard himself say. The first rule the cubs broke was the silence protocol in the meditation chambers. While 40 cadets sat in perfect stillness, attempting to commune with the cosmic frequencies that enhanced combat awareness, the cubs tumbled and played across the polished floor. Their chirps echoed off the crystalline walls. Master Zenthari, a being of pure energy contained in a ceremonial robe, turned to address the disruption. Sarah sat perfectly still, her breathing controlled, her mind focused. The cubs, as if sensing her concentration, suddenly quieted. The largest one, Sarah had started calling him Striker, positioned himself in front of her in a protective stance, his tiny body rigid with juvenile determination. Zenthari observed for a long moment, then returned to the lesson. Thorin, watching from his post, made no move to intervene. The second rule they broke was the no assistance policy during the gauntlet trial. Cadets were meant to navigate the kilometer-long obstacle course alone, facing automated defenses, environmental hazards, and combat drones. When Sarah's turn came, the cubs simply followed her in. She didn't slow down, didn't acknowledge them, just moved with a fluid efficiency that Thorin found mesmerizing. When a plasma turret swiveled toward her, one cub leaped and tangled itself in the targeting sensors. When a pit opened beneath her feet, 2 others had already jumped across and extended their bodies as a makeshift bridge. When combat drones descended, the remaining cubs created such chaos with their yipping and dodging that the machine's AI couldn't establish target lock. Sarah completed the course in record time. The cubs emerged victorious, puffed up with pride. Commander Vexthor, the Draxian who oversaw combat trials, stormed toward Thorin's post. This is unacceptable. The human used unauthorized assistance. She should be expelled. Thorin looked at the commander with his multifaceted eyes. Did the Cubs use weapons? Did they employ technology? Did they exhibit trained tactical behavior? Well, no, but then they are simply wildlife that happened to be present during the trial, Thorin stated. Unless you'd like to argue that we should expel cadets for the presence of insects or atmospheric birds? Vexthor's scales rippled with frustration, but he had no counter-argument. The third, fourth, and fifth rules the Cubs broke involved entering restricted areas, accessing the premium nutrition dispensers, and sleeping in the command tower's strategic planning room. Each time, Thorin found a reason to overlook it: a sensor malfunction, a door left unlocked, an administrative error. The truth was, Thorin had begun to see what was happening. The other cadets had noticed too. Sarah never asked the Cubs for help, never commanded them, never relied on them. She trained harder than anyone, pushed herself further, accepted failure and learned from it with a grace that spoke of deep inner strength. The Cubs simply stayed near her, protected her when they sensed danger, celebrated with her when she succeeded, mourned with her when she failed. And slowly, remarkably, other cadets began to change. The Krell warrior, who had been too proud to accept assistance from his squad partners, started working with them after watching how Sarah moved in harmony with the Cubs. The Centauri Scion, who had isolated herself, learned about trust by observing how Sarah never doubted the Cubs would be there when needed. The human mercenary from New Mars, who had come to the academy with cold ambition, rediscovered something he'd thought he'd lost: the ability to fight for something beyond himself. By the third month, Sarah and the Cubs had become a legend within the academy walls. By the sixth month, they'd become a symbol. By the time graduation approached, they'd become something more. A reminder that the galaxy's greatest warriors weren't always those with the most weapons or the fiercest reputations, but those who inspired loyalty, who moved through the world with quiet purpose, who didn't need to dominate to lead. On graduation day, Thorin stood at attention as Sarah received her commission. All 6 Cubs sat in perfect formation at her feet, now significantly larger, their adult features beginning to emerge. Stryker, the largest, bore a ceremonial collar marking him as a recognized companion, a designation Thorin had personally filed through military bureaucracy. As Sarah passed his post, she stopped. "Thank you," she said simply, "for allowing them to stay." Thorin's mandibles moved in what might have been a smile. "I allowed nothing. I simply observed that some rules exist to maintain order, while others exist to be challenged by those worthy of doing so. The Cubs knew what you were. I merely agreed with their assessment." Sarah nodded, understanding passing between them. She walked out of the academy gates, 6 Valdrin at her heels, ready to face a galaxy that had no idea what was coming. Behind her, Thorin returned to his post. Tomorrow, new applicants would arrive. He would enforce every rule, maintain every protocol, uphold every standard. Unless, of course, someone worthy came along. The Cubs had taught him that much.